That brother up on me like that. Come on with that bullshit.
Some bullshit, man.
Are you taking my ID for? Wait. Nah, y'all can't do that. Can't do that to me. Y'all can't do that to me. That's my ID. Do that to me. Why y'all doing that to me? Nah, get the out of here, man. Nah. I'm going to get my dog, man. Don't touch me. Fucking touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
We have police fighting another civilian on the street.
Yo, this some bull, man. This some bull. This some bull. This.
Oh, he's telling the guy in the mouth, the police are turn around. Come on, it's right, gang. 8th Avenue. Let's go. Hurry up.
Camera. I got everything on camera. I got everything on camera. Look, he messing her. He messing him. He messing.
Now the other thing that we've got to come to see now that many of us didn't see too well during the last 10 years, that is that racism
not guilty
is still alive in American society and much more widespread.
Broke his neck after Baltimore police.
A handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who.
As long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
Mr. Gray's death was a homicide.
The Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery.
The athletes marched onto a stage.
But at the same time, the nation refused to give him land to make that freedom meaningful. Freedom without land to cultivate. It was freedom and famine at the same time.
And create jobs for our people.
The Negro is to be free. He must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation.
A handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who.
That dash cam video helped provide a Bloomfield, New Jersey man's innocence. It's a story we first broke at 7 Online.
This 30-year-old faced a number of charges, including eluding police and assault. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace obtained the dash cam tapes, and she spoke exclusively with him. Sarah?
Well, Diana and Sade, quite a turnabout. All of the criminal charges against Marcus Jeter have been dismissed. 2 Bloomfield cops have now been indicted. A third quietly pleaded guilty to tampering and retired. It's all because of video the cops may have tried to hide.
Get out the car! Get out!
This is the Bloomfield Police Department's dash cam video that prosecutors say they never saw when they pursued criminal charges against 30-year-old Marcus Jeter. Notice his hands in the air. He was charged with eluding police, resisting arrest, and assault. And also notice who throws repeated punches.
If the tape hadn't surfaced,
I was going to be doing jail.
The incident began when cops were called to the Bloomfield home Jeter shares with his girlfriend. No charges were filed, and Jeter says he left after briefly talking to officers.
They say you were eluding them.
When they were behind me with the lights on, I pulled right over,
So you weren't trying to escape?
No, I wasn't trying to escape.
In a video from the first police car, prosecutors did see Jeter stops on the side of the Garden State Parkway. The cops pull out guns.
Why didn't you just get out of the car?
Because I was afraid. There was a cop on my left with a gun pointed at me, and there was one on my right side with a shotgun pointed. I'm afraid that I might get shot.
If you got out?
Mm-hmm.
The tape not initially turned over is on the dash of a second police car that comes from the opposite direction, crosses the median into ongoing traffic, and then strikes Jeter's car. There is no mention of that in any police report. When Jeter first told his attorney that part of the story,
it was incredible. I didn't believe his story at that particular point in time.
So you finally believed him then?
Yes.
The next thing I know, as he's coming around the car, the glass gets busted, and all the glass goes in my face.
Get out the car!
Your hands are up?
My hands are up. As soon as he opened the door, one of the officers reached in and just punched me in my face. As he's trying to take the seatbelt off, he's elbowed me in my jaw. And I'm like, ah, and he's like, stop trying to take my gun.
Don't go for my gun!
Stop resisting arrest. Stop trying to take my gun. And as he's saying that, I just knew, and I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, okay, this is gonna go wrong.
Get down! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Why are you trying to get my gun? Get off my gun!
And right before when they opened the door about to put me in, the officer hits me in the back of the head again.
as soon as prosecutors saw this video, they dismissed all of the charges against Jeter. Interesting to note, an investigation by Bloomfield PD's scandal-plagued Internal Affairs Division had found no wrongdoing by police officers.
The blame is with the Bloomfield Police Department not providing that tape. If we hadn't had the tapes in this particular case, an innocent man would be in jail today.
I'm sure that if this happened to me, it could happen to a bunch of other people, you know.
Scary, right?
It's a scary situation.
And we were there exclusively today in Essex County Court in Newark, where Bloomfield police officers Sean Corder, there on the left, and Orlando Trinidad, who you will see here on the right, were arraigned on charges including conspiracy, official misconduct, and falsifying reports. Trinidad is also charged with aggravated assault. They pleaded not guilty.
We never talked about race growing up. I just don't think that was ever a conversation.
I thought that love would conquer all and skin color really didn't matter. I had to learn the really hard way when they almost killed you.
Yeah. I was 19 years old. I had picked up a friend, and I noticed that we had red and blue lights behind us. We were being pulled over. The officer explained I had made an illegal left turn and to step out of the car. So I get out of the car first. He pats me down. And then he goes around to the passenger side and pulls my friend Addison out of the car.
Addison is white.
Yeah, Addison is white. And he had some weed in his coat pocket. So he gets placed in handcuffs. I figure that everything's okay. I'm not in handcuffs. I've already been patted down. Plus, there's 3 officers on the scene. And I had never had a negative interaction with police in my life. So I asked them, can I please see a warrant before you continue the search? And they grabbed me and began to hit me in the face. I could hear Addison in the background yelling, "Stop, leave him alone." I was hit several times, and I remember gasping for air and spitting and blood flying across the grass. And then I hear an officer shout out, "He's reaching for a gun." I immediately started yelling, "No, I'm not. I'm not reaching for anything." And I remember an officer say, "If he doesn't calm down, we're going to have to shoot him." I could feel the gun pressed to my head. I expected to be shot, and at that point I lost consciousness. I woke up to a multitude of officers just standing around me laughing. One officer was like, "Where's that warrant now, you fucking nigger?" It took 45 stitches to close up the lacerations in my face alone. How did it feel when you finally saw me?
All I remember is involuntarily screaming.
That was the first time I had cried the entire time I had been in there. And it wasn't my injuries that hurt. It was just seeing how it devastated you.
My whole worldview changed that night.
Yeah. For me, it was the point of awakening to how the rest of the world is going to look at you. I was just another black face in the streets. And I was almost another dead black male.
An experienced and accomplished police veteran who served on Chicago's Independent Police Review Authority, which examines police shootings, has been fired. And he says it's because he would not change his findings about 6 shootings by police, which he considered to be unjustified. Lorenzo Davis, who will join me in a moment, served in the Chicago Police Department for 23 years, retiring in 2004. But he was hired as an investigator for Chicago's Independent Police Review Authority, IPRA, in 2008. 2 years later, he was promoted and began leading a team of 5 investigators. But recently, when he refused orders to reverse findings in police shooting cases that he found to be unjustified, he was fired. In fact, according to a job performance evaluation obtained by WBEZ, his superiors accused him of, quote, a clear bias against the police and called him the only supervisor at IPRA who resists making requested changes as directed by management in order to reflect the correct finding with respect to OIS or officer-involved shooting. He was fired earlier this month, and joining me now, Lorenzo Davis, former Independent Police Review Authority supervising investigator. Mr. Davis, first, can you tell me a little bit about what kind of work they do at IPRA? What was the kind of work you undertook when you were there?
Well, at IPRA, we investigate, or when I was there, we investigated complaints of excessive force by Chicago police officers, also complaints of verbal abuse in particular, complaints of racial bias and racial abusive language, and we investigated all police shootings or say whenever police use their weapons, we investigated all of those cases. As it has been stated by many people who did a study, since the inception of the Independent Police Review Authority, there have been over 400 police-involved shootings, and none of them, up until perhaps 2 or 3 weeks ago, have been determined to be not justified. You have over 400 police-involved shootings that were justified, and only one a shooting that occurred, according to the newspapers, in 2011 that was found to be not justified, and that was an off-duty shooting where an officer mistakenly fired at the wrong car.
So are you saying that this essentially was rigged, that basically your supervisors at IPRA were determined to get a finding of justified, and if your team went out and did the legwork and found it to be unjustified and came back with that, they would say no and overrule you?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Do you, as was essentially, apparently reportedly written in the review produced by your supervisors, do you have an anti-police bias?
Of course not. I love the Chicago Police Department. I was there for 23 years. I started as a patrol officer, and I finished my career as a commander. I commanded both units in patrol, in the detective division, and in special operations. I have numerous friends who are Chicago police officers. My brother is a Chicago police sergeant, retired now. So I have no bias against Chicago police officers.
Are you buckled up? You better buckle up. Michael A. Wood Jr., former Marine, and in this particular case, more relevantly, former Baltimore Police Department officer, and a guy who's been speaking out about the culture of policing in this country and has some really interesting things to say. 160, he's right next to me. How you doing, Michael? Good to have you here, man.
The only person that was surprised by what I said was everybody that doesn't live in the hood. Mm-hmm. Everybody that lives in the hood just went, oh, look, a cop admitted it. But everyone else said, oh my gosh, that really happens? Of course it happens. Did you think the black community was lying for the last 100 years? Is that what we really thought? We thought they were lying?
Yeah, I didn't, but I'm positive.
Right. I mean, as a community, that's what we thought. We thought they were lying. They're not lying. There's nothing else I can say about that. They're not lying. So when I was in, it was, you're in that culture. So it's not that there's a racist cop. It's not that there's like this mass organization, like we have this conspiracy. It's that you go into this culture that has these racist roots that you don't think about, and it's just what policing has become. And so you do it. A suspect gets kicked in the face, somebody makes up a little bit on a PC statement. All this stuff is just what police do. So when you were a good guy joining the good guys, you thought that that's what good guys do. So you go into it, and it just takes you acclimatize to the culture, and then eventually I got to the point where I was like, wait, this isn't making sense.
So one particular thing, there's a million parts to that. I want to discuss all of them in terms of seeing the community as the enemy, et cetera. But there was one part that was super stark where you talk about a group of cops called the knockers who come in and urinate and defecate in people's homes. So I think that was jarring for a lot of people. What is that?
Well, that was a one-off incident that I saw.
Okay.
But I was a knocker at the time.
Uh-huh.
So knockers in Baltimore are the plainclothes officers that you see running around, jacking people up on corners, doing all the drug rips. They're just called knockers to the people there.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been serving a raid with other units. So you kind of work around the city. The city's too big that you don't know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we did one raid where we were assisting, and somebody did that in the other room. And it was like, what? Did that just really happen? Like,
And okay, so why?
So the story that I got was that some unit had done it before, and it was like, ha, remember when that unit did that.
Mm-hmm.
But they do it, and we do things like you tear the house apart, you break things, you do things like that, because those are thems. You don't care what you do to them. They're somebody else. They're the enemy. So if it was in Afghanistan and you were throwing things around, you just wouldn't care because they're the enemy. So it's the same thing. It's just callousness.
And is it gratuitous? I mean, obviously, the defecation on was it their clothes, their bed, something along those lines?
It was in the corner. I think one was a plant, and I don't remember where the other one went. But I thought that they were going to get caught, and I figured, why are they doing that? They're going to get caught.
They never got caught, right?
They never got caught.
Nobody ever turned them in, right?
No, the people I was with were like, I guess they're just going to tell them the canine did it. That makes sense. No one's going to test it. So if you say the canine dog did it,
right,
then that makes perfectly logical sense.
If you had turned them in, would you have been taken enormous heat from the rest of the cops?
You know what happened to Joe Crystal. You know what happened to me.
Yeah.
Not that I thought of it. I didn't think to do it.
Uh-huh.
Like, saying was not something that was even on the, like, what am I going to do? A, B, or C? Like, telling them was E or F or something. It wasn't even on the list. I had A, B, and C. That's it.
Right. And Joe Crystal, for those of you who don't know, is a great cop out of Baltimore who did turn people in. He was the good cop that people talk about. And of course, he got ridden out of town. I mean,
was his first sergeant.
You were his first sergeant? Really?
Yeah, when he was a trainee.
Oh, wow. That's super interesting. And how was your relationship with him?
To be honest, he was a trainee. I didn't care about him.
Uh-huh.
He was,
I get it.
He was the low guy. I was making sure he was getting taken care of and was with a good officer. But that was kind of my extent. He was just to do what I really told him, honestly.
Right. Okay. That's funny. So, but and did you see Joe getting mistreated by the others once he turned in the fellow
later
cops?
on, after he got the reputation? I mean, everybody knew about it. To be completely honest, I really hated his sergeant. I did not like him at all. I had tons of runs in with that guy, so whatever Joey said was completely plausible to me. That supervisor was a bad supervisor. So anything that happened under his watch wasn't going to surprise me.
Well, that's interesting. But nobody was going to turn on that supervisor. They were going to turn on Joe.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, and I did a whole story about that. You should check that out if you haven't seen it on YouTube. Just type in Joe Crystal. He's an amazing guy, and just now he can't even get a job in other police stations. I mean,
yeah, he had to go to essentially, not to insult that, but it's a step down.
Yeah, and he's in just a really small local community. And when he applies for jobs in Nevada, they say, "Oh, we did a background check on you." No, even though his test scores are great, et cetera. So I assume you're not getting back into policing.
I had no intentions on it.
After what you've confessed to or admitted to as to what cops are actually doing, you got to be right next to Joe on that list.
Well, I've been talking for years, actually. It's just no one listened.
Mm-hmm.
I had talked a little bit when I was in the agency. Nobody listened. And I had completely switched. My master's is in management. My PhD that I'm going for is in management. I was figuring I was just going another path and leaving that behind. And so I like to talk about it once in a while to local media and stuff. We would talk about it.
And then this happened, right? The Washington Post ran the story. A lot of people have run the story. You were just on Joe Rogan's podcast. Everybody should check that out, too. But so when you were in the white areas, like everybody knew. It wasn't like Michael A. Wood Jr. decided, oh, no, I'm not arresting any white people. Like the cops in that area, you know that, oh, shoot, I might run into a judge's kid. So I'm going to get in trouble if I knock on the wrong door. Or did you even think, like, did all the cops there assume, like, it's not even an issue. Of course we're not going to go and, if there's a guy standing on a street corner in a nice suburb, or again, it's not a suburb in that case, it happens to be part of the city, you're not going to go stop and frisk him, right?
No, it's preposterous. We would never do that.
You would never do that.
No.
God, isn't that amazing?
I've got a job working at the police station where I was summer youth employee working for number 5 precinct. They throw me their keys and I would have to get in their cars and like they park up the block, I'd have to either back up or take it around the block. Either a kid sitting in a police car. Oh man, my chest just grew about 10 inches, man, you know, because I got in the car and I'm riding. And I started thinking this is what I want to do. I became supervisor of Group 42 for the Drug Enforcement Administration. They cross-designated me. I had to get sworn in as a special agent for DEA. So now I'm doing dual tasks. I'm a U.S. Marshal and I'm a special agent for DEA. That's when I picked up the name Batman. I'm talking about Gotham City, man. We were rolling, man. We were jumping on guys in the middle of the night, all of that, swooping down on folks all across the country. Using these sort of tactical operations that we went out on that you would use in Vietnam or use in some type of war-torn zone. And all of the stuff that we were doing, just calling it the war on drugs. And it wasn't very many black guys in my position. So when I would go into the war room where we were setting up all of our drug and gun addiction task forces, determining what cities where we're going to hit, I would notice that most of the time was always appeared to be urban areas. That's when I asked the question, well, don't they sell drugs out Potomac and Springfield and places like that? Or maybe y'all think they don't. The statistics show they use more drugs out in those areas than anywhere. The special agent in charge, he says, you know, we go out there and start messing with those folks. They know judges, they know lawyers, they know politicians. You start locking their kids up, somebody's going to jerk our chain. He said, they're going to call us on it, and before you know it, they're going to shut us down, and there goes your overtime. What I begin to see is that the drug war is totally about race. If we was locking up everybody, white and black, for doing the same drugs, they would have done the same thing they did with Prohibition. They would have outlawed it. They would have said, let's stop this craziness because you're not putting my son in jail. My daughter's not going to jail. If it was an equal enforcement opportunity operation, we wouldn't be sitting here anyway. It's all about fairness, man, and understanding how would I want to be treated. Whether I'm on that one end or the other end, how would I want to be treated if everything was done equally?
Right? So then you just go to the black because you got to get some sort of arrest.
I gotta get my numbers. Yeah.
Ah, God damn it. I mean, so what you said in the beginning is just rings even louder, right? Which is that it's just part of the assumption that this is what you do. This is, you go and it's institutional racism to its core.
Initial contact was not related to the robbery. It was related to blocking the road.
You're telling us that when the officer stopped Michael Brown for the first time, he was not aware that Brown was a suspect in a robbery.
No, he was just coming off of a sick case, which is why the ambulance was there so quickly.
So why did he stop?
But yes.
Let's stay with this.
Okay.
This is critical.
Well,
you're saying, what are you saying, Chief? Did he know that he was a suspect in a case, or did he not know?
No, he didn't. He was walking.
It had nothing to do with the stop.
It had nothing to do with stop.
So then why release the video?
At approximately 11:45 a.m. on Saturday, the 9th of August, Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson was dispatched to the Northwinds apartment complex for an emergency involving a 2-month-old infant having trouble breathing. At approximately 11:53, while still at the Northwinds call, Wilson heard a radio broadcast for a stealing in progress at a market on West Florissant. The broadcast also included a brief description of the suspect, a black male wearing a white T-shirt who took a box of Swisher cigars.
You're telling us that when the officer stopped Michael Brown for the first time, he was not aware that Brown was a suspect in a robbery.
No, he was just coming off of a sick case, which is why the ambulance was there so quickly.
So why did he stop?
But yes.
Let's stay with this.
Okay.
This is critical.
Well,
you're saying, what are you saying, Chief? Did he know that he was a suspect in a case, or did he not know?
No, he didn't. He was walking.
It had nothing to do with the stop.
It had nothing to do with stop this.
So then why release the video?
Other officers were dispatched to that store. Officer Wilson remained with the mother and the infant until EMS arrived to transport them to the hospital. Officer Wilson then left Northwinds complex in his Ferguson police vehicle, a Chevy Tahoe SUV, and drove west on Canfield towards West Florissant. An additional description of the stealing suspect was broadcast about that time, wearing a red hat, yellow socks, khaki shorts, and he was with another male.
Okay, so are you then, you said you haven't actually spoken with the clerk, but can you, as an attorney representing him, can you take us to Saturday, August 9th? Can you give us an idea of what your client, who is seen in that surveillance video being pushed by a man police say is Michael Brown, what his version of events are? What happened before that confrontation seen in the pictures?
Sure. I mean, first of all, my clients have never said that that is Michael Brown in the video.
Gosh, we apologize for that. So sorry about that. All right, it looks like we've lost that interview.
Of course they would. Of course they would.
It looks like he maybe...
As Officer Wilson was attending to his emergency call on Northwinds, Michael Brown and a companion were in a local convenience store on West Florissant. Michael Brown's activity in that store was recorded by the store's security cameras. The video, often played following its release in August by the Ferguson Police Department, shows Michael Brown grabbing a handful of cigarillos and heading toward the exit without paying.
At this point, why did he stop Michael Brown?
Because they were walking down the middle of the street blocking traffic. That was it.
The Justice Department issued a report saying the town does indeed target African Americans, especially for civil violations, tickets. Ferguson, 67% black, but 90% of the citations issued there go to African Americans. Joining us now from St. Louis, Jeff Oruda, spokesman for the Police Officers Association there, and McGraw-Milhaven, radio talk show host on KTR. So, Mr. Milhaven, begin with you. What do you think of the Justice Department report?
Just to take that number and put those numbers on it, you show me a good statistician, I'll show you a good liar.
All right, but I can give you some perspective. I mean, in the low-level beef of failing to comply, which is like jaywalking and all of that stuff, 94%, Mr. Milhaven, of all citations issued to blacks, they're targeting blacks. They are. I mean, there's no way on earth that high. Because this is a discretionary beef. You don't have to give a ticket to somebody who's not crossing the street properly. They're targeting it. They're doing it for money. They want the money, and it's an easy play. Come on.
No question. They're targeting blacks and whites, and everyone knows in St. Louis that
it's only 6% of whites get these things. So it's not and whites. It's blacks. Wrong. It's wrong. You know it's wrong.
No, it is wrong, Bill, but you have to remember, people get caught for speeding, and the ticket is $100. And listen to me, and in St. Louis, you then plead guilty to a non-moving violation. You're charged more.
I don't want to get into the weeds on this thing,
and everybody makes
but if somebody's speeding and goes for a red light, that I don't think is targeting anybody. You do it, you pay. Somebody's walking along on a curb, and they're looking for him.
Why did he stop Michael Brown?
Because they were walking down the middle of the street blocking traffic. That was it.
I don't want to see anyone get shot down the way that my brother got shot down. We've all seen the video. If there wasn't a video, would we know the truth? Or would we just go on what was reported earlier? We've all seen the video. If there wasn't a video, would we know the truth? Or would we just go on what was reported earlier? We've all seen the video. If there wasn't a video, would we know the truth? Or would we just go on what was reported earlier?
My name is Michelle Alexander. I'm a law professor at Ohio State University and the author of The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration and the Age of Colorblindness. One of the things I find most fascinating in my conversations with white people about the drug war is their insistence that those who are doing time did the crime. So what's the problem? And then I'll say, well, did you ever drink underage? You know, when you were in high school, did you ever drink underage? Did you ever experiment with marijuana? And then very frequently you find people shifting their seat, getting uncomfortable. And this idea that of innocence, that other people are the criminals, but not them, is a thoroughly racialized idea. And, you know, I often point out we're all criminals. We've all made mistakes in our lives. We've all done wrong. Anyone who's an adult has broken the law at some point in their lives. But some of us have the privilege of making certain kinds of mistakes and going on to college or grad school and off to work and never having to check that box on employment applications, while others of us do not. In fact, you know, research shows that a white man with a criminal record is more likely to be hired than a black man without a criminal record. So even this system of mass incarceration, when white folks are ensnared by it, doesn't affect them in the same way. When they're branded criminals and felons, they're not viewed as criminals and felons in the outside world. But that felon label, that criminal label, serves to define who black people are. And in fact, even if you haven't been branded a criminal or felon, you are treated as though there is something about you that is wrong by employers and in the world more broadly. So part of what white privilege is to me is the freedom to make mistakes and go on. That is a privilege that poor folks of color in this country, particularly young people, don't have.
The U.S. Bureau of Justice just noted that as of 2008, 40.2% of the prison population was made up of African Americans. Okay, now that's an enormous number, especially considering the fact that only 12% of the U.S. population is black. Well, an author by the name of Michelle Alexander, she really put things in perspective when she noted that we have more African Americans in prison now than we did slaves back in 1850.
But there's a million reasons behind this. But the bottom line is, the war on drugs has created an environment where we are imprisoning an insane number of black people. And to the point where you wonder if it's systematic and you wonder if it's on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the big question there. Is it systematic or is it on purpose? And I think a lot of people would argue that it's on purpose because, as you noted, you know, study after study has indicated that both blacks and whites use drugs at the same rates. But police always target areas, urban areas, that have a larger black population. Why is it that more black people get arrested for the same thing that white people commit? Same crimes that white people commit, which, by the way, using drugs, I don't consider a crime. Another really interesting thing is the fact that crime rates overall are historically low right now. So why are more and more black people getting arrested? You know, if you really delve into the numbers. So from 2008 to 2009, violent crime was down 5.5% overall and almost 7% in big cities. In Detroit, for instance, with the auto industry shedding workers, violent crime was down 2.4%. In Washington, D.C., murder was down 23.1%. Rape was down 19.4%. So across the board, you're seeing all of these crimes going down, but you see an increase of African Americans getting arrested for drug-related offenses. And, you know, not only do I think that that's wrong because of the fact that, you know, they're blacks and we're targeting blacks, but I think it's wrong because of the amount of money we're spending to keep these people in jail for drug-related offenses. So there's so many negative aspects of this.
I think it's a very legitimate issue to discuss this in terms of is it targeting black people or not? Is it a black or a white issue? But you have to also consider the other aspect of this, which is financial. And and when you look at it, for example, there's a guy in Montana that we talked about recently, got pulled over for passing his bong inside a car, which he shouldn't have done. But he faces a life sentence and a $50,000 fine. Now, is he going to get that? We don't know. He hasn't gone through the whole process yet. But even the fact that he's facing that is so unbelievable, and it happens to people all throughout the country. But meanwhile, rich people get away with it all the time. Former President George W. Bush, accused of doing much harder drugs than just pot. Then President Obama, is admitted to doing pot, and I believe admitted to doing cocaine. But they're rich, powerful in the establishment, so there are no consequences. Republican governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, just admitted he was caught with 2 or 3 shoe boxes full of pot and LSD, I believe. Yeah, it was pot and LSD. And at the time, he paid a small fine. He was going to Princeton. See, kids going to Princeton, they don't get punished. You get caught with that same amount of drugs in the Bronx, and you're in a world of trouble. And a lot of that has to do with rich people get away with everything, and this society feels like it's okay to take it out on the poor. And it seems to have an overall disdain for poor and middle-class people that is part of a larger problem we have in this society.
If you're a low-level drug dealer or you violate your parole, you owe some debt to society. You have to be held accountable and make amends. But you don't owe 20 years. You don't owe a life sentence.
I saw this video. It was tweeted today. It's by a gentleman who you'll see in the video, and it was taken on January 31st in 2014 in St. Paul. The man says he was walking through a skyway in St. Paul. Minneapolis and St. Paul in the winter, they have all these skyways that connect buildings because it's so freaking cold there. His cell phone was then confiscated. I watched this video this morning. It was I saw somebody I was following shared it. I could only watch it for a minute or two. It was so disturbing and so upsetting and so, it's such a good example. It so exemplifies the problem that we have both with policing and identifying someone by color and assuming guilt or that they're up to some sort of no good. Watch it. Watch it and share it. And I guess we'll have it in the clip so you can share it that way. So, but it was on Twitter today and it was tweeted by someone who's a responsible tweeter too.
So what's your business with me right now?
I want to find out who you are and what the problem was back
There
in
is no
National
problem.
Labor.
That's the thing.
So talk to me, let me know
And
who
let you
are,
know.
and you can be on your way.
Why do I have to let you know who I am? Who I am isn't
because
the problem.
that's what police do when they get called.
Well, I don't have to let
identify
you.
people.
Well, I know my rights, first off. Secondly, I don't have to let you know who I am if I haven't broken any laws. First off, that's a public area, and if there's no sign that doesn't say this is a private area, you can't sit here, no one can tell me I can't sit there. If that's the case, then I can't sit here.
The
problem is I'm black. That's the problem. No, it really is, because I didn't do anything wrong. What's going on, brother?
What's going on?
I gotta go get my kids. No. Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me.
You're gonna go to jail then.
No, wait.
You're gonna go to jail.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Hold on.
Can you please?
I'm not
No, come on, brother.
Hold on, I'm not here to argue. I'm not your brother.
This is assault. Can you please?
Hold on. I'm not here to argue with you.
Wrong, sir.
Put your hands behind your back.
No, can you please
Put
not
your hands
do
behind
this?
your back.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Put your hands behind your back.
Come on, really? I gotta go get my kids.
Put your hands behind your back, otherwise it's gonna get ugly.
What do you need from me?
I told you.
Can you have him let me go?
And identify you so you can settle what happened.
I haven't done anything wrong.
I told you what I wanted initially. So we could settle all
Put your hands
this.
behind your back.
You started to.
I haven't done anything wrong. Please, no, don't do this. Please,
Put your hands behind your back.
Can somebody help me? That's my kids right there. My kids are right there.
Yeah, put your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back. Don't choke me. I have asthma, sir.
Well, you're gonna get
doing
tased.
anything. I'm not doing anything.
You're gonna get tased.
I'm doing. Ow! Get down! I'm not doing anything. Stop, please. Someone help me. Someone please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Can someone please help me? I haven't done anything wrong. Can someone please help me? Really? I haven't done anything wrong.
That's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. And it's important to watch though, because for any type of change to happen, you have to watch all of this. You have to see the dogs in 1963 in Kelly Ingram Park in Birmingham and be appalled by it.
Many feared the violence of the Ku Klux Klan.
Whatsoever, and we shall not integrate.
The Klan had helped elect a white racist named Eugene Bull Connor as Birmingham's police chief. To put a stop to civil rights demonstrations, Connor sent attack dogs.
All you gotta do is tell them you're gonna bring the dogs. Look at them run. I want to see the dogs work.
You have to see John Lewis getting struck over the head on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, and be appalled by it to see that there needs to be change someplace. Yeah. So you have to watch these videos and see that it is a reality, that this man apparently was seated, waiting, killing time, alone, as anyone who has a kid has done. I'm always late to pick my kid up, but most people kill a few minutes before they get there, and just standing alone there on a cold, St. Paul January day. And then he was going to walk down the hall and pick his kids up as New Horizons. Then he sees the officer that he was presumably speaking with earlier, and he said, "How are you, brother?" And he said, "I'm not here to argue, and I'm not your brother."
Yeah.
I mean, the police used to be like when we were kids and you wanted to be a cop, it was because there was a beat cop in the neighborhood, and people knew the cops, and then they all moved into cars, and then now they're in tanks. Yeah. So the whole distancing and militarization of the police has and again, I have nothing against individual policemen that I know and have met, and I think that they're like in any profession, they're mostly noble. But when you see this, it shows you that there's a huge problem, and it's not. And like you said, John, about something else, like there's cell phone video of everything all the time. So we're just seeing one here. This is not the only time this has happened.
Yeah, and just before you type the comments like, oh, look, they cut stuff out. Yes, the video is much longer. However, you can watch the entire thing. The guy was insanely rational and level-headed to a fault. Yeah. Was not raising his voice. He was just saying, I know my rights. I wasn't doing anything. And in that situation, like if you're the sort of person that looks at him and says he deserves it, as so many people that watch our videos apparently do, what would you have done in that situation? There apparently is nothing you can do once the cops approach you to not be locked up, to not be handcuffed and dragged away. All he was saying was, I wasn't doing anything. I'm here for a good reason. My kids are right there. You can see my kids are there. I'm picking them up. What the fuck are you supposed to do at that point?
If you look at the 13th Amendment, the 13th Amendment says no man can be held under enslavement or involuntary servitude except for conviction. Because we got the Emancipation Proclamation and slavery has been abolished, but yet it's still written in our Constitution that it never really left.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare.